My mom tried to take my $150,000, then I found the fake doctor's note. I knew my mother was trying to take my money when she said 3 words I will never forget. We already did it. I was sitting at my desk when she called. I remember looking at the clock. 2:17 p.m. My coffee was cold. My laptop was open. And I was halfway through a report when my mother said, "Sweetheart, don't be upset. We added your sister to the investment account." I actually stopped breathing for a second. Because that account had nearly $150,000 in it. Money I'd spent years saving. Money my grandmother had helped me start. Money my mother had absolutely no right to touch. So I asked the simplest question I could think of. "Mom, how did you get access to it?" She didn't answer. Instead, she said, "You're going to understand when you know the whole story." That sentence terrified me. Because suddenly I realized my mother wasn't asking for my money anymore. She thought she had already found a way to take it. And what I discovered 3 days later involved a forged medical document, a family secret, and a plan to make me look mentally incapable of controlling my own finances. But let me take you back. Because the warning signs had been there for months. I just didn't know how to read them. My name is Nora. I'm 35 years old, and I've always been the responsible daughter. You know the type. The daughter who answers the phone. The daughter who remembers appointments. The daughter who pays bills on time. The daughter everyone calls when something goes wrong. My younger sister, Sophie, was the opposite. She was the dreamer. At least, that's what my parents called her. I called her lucky. Because whenever Sophie made a mistake, someone cleaned it up. When her first business failed, Dad covered the debt. When her second idea failed, Mom paid for another course. When she couldn't afford her car payment, I helped. When she couldn't afford insurance, I helped. And every time I started feeling uncomfortable, my mother would say the same thing. "She's your sister." As if being related meant I had signed an invisible contract. Then came the wellness studio. Sophie had found what she called the perfect location. She needed $60,000. And my mother had already decided where it was coming from. My investment account. The account held almost $150,000. I'd built it slowly. Month after month. Year after year. I never touched it. My grandmother had started it for me when I was young. She wasn't rich. But she believed in saving. And before she died, she held my hand and told me, "Always keep something for yourself." I thought she meant money. I was wrong. The family dinner happened on a Sunday. My mother put a folder on the table. I knew immediately. She only used folders when she wanted something to look official. "Sophie has a business opportunity," she said. My sister smiled. My father stared at his plate. I opened the folder. $60,000. I closed it. No, my mother blinked. "You haven't heard everything." "I don't need to." Sophie looked at me. "So you don't believe in me?" And there it was. The guilt. Not, "Can you afford it?" Not, "Would you be comfortable helping?" Instead, they made my decision about whether I loved my sister. I looked at Sophie. "I believe you can build your own business." Then I looked at my mother. "But I'm not giving you my retirement money." My mother's face changed. It was subtle. A tiny tightening around the eyes. But I noticed. She said, "Family helps family." I answered, "Family also respects boundaries." Then I left. I thought I had one. I hadn't. Because the next few weeks became strange. Very strange. My mother suddenly became interested in my health. "How have you been sleeping? Are you stressed? Are you taking anything? Do you still see your doctor?" The first time, I ignored it. The second time, I noticed. The third time, I felt something in my stomach. Then my sister texted me. She wanted copies of old family documents. She said Mom was organizing everything. I stared at the message. Organizing what? And then I remembered something. Years earlier, I'd signed a power of attorney. It was supposed to protect me if I ever became incapable of managing my affairs. My mother had been named as the person who could act for me. At the time, I hadn't worried. She was my mother. Why would I need protection from her? That question kept me awake that night. So I called my friend Rachel, an attorney. I told her everything. She listened. Then she asked, "Who has the original document?" My heart sank. My mother. There was a long pause. Then Rachel said, "Nora, I think you need to act before they do." I didn't understand what she meant. Not yet. The next morning, I revoked the old authorization. I changed passwords. Added security alerts. Updated my financial institutions. Moved important documents. And then Rachel told me something that made everything worse. She said, "If your mother tries to use the old document before the revocation is fully processed, the institution could freeze the account while they investigate." I asked, "What if she claims I'm incapable?" Rachel paused. "That would complicate things." "How?" "They could ask for medical evidence." I felt cold. "Medical evidence?" She nodded. "A doctor's certification." I sat there staring at her. And suddenly all those questions from my mother made sense. My sleeping. My stress. My doctor. My medication. They weren't checking on me. They were building a story about me. A story where I wasn't responsible enough to control my own money. That was the moment I made the hardest financial decision of my life. I moved the money. I didn't do it in anger. I did it like an accountant. I documented everything. Every transaction. Every transfer. Every confirmation number. I moved the funds into a separate account under my control. And when the final transfer cleared, I sat alone in my apartment staring at the screen. Nearly $150,000. Gone from the account my family knew about. Safe somewhere they couldn't touch. I remember whispering, "I'm sorry, Grandma." Because moving that money felt like admitting something. My family wasn't safe anymore. I left a tiny balance behind. Then I waited. 3 days. Nothing. 4 days. Nothing. 7 days. Still nothing. I almost started believing I'd overreacted. Then my phone rang. It was my mother. "Sweetheart," she said, sounding strangely calm. "We've taken care of everything." My heart started pounding. "What did you do?" "We added Sophie to the account." I said, "There's nothing there for her." Silence. Then my mother's voice became cold. "Where did you move it?" I didn't answer. "You need to put that money back." "No, you don't understand what's happening." "I understand perfectly." Then she said, "You're not thinking clearly." I froze. Those words. Not thinking clearly. I had heard them before. But now they sounded different. Then my mother said, "Your doctor is going to help us sort this out." I hung up. I called my doctor's office immediately. And that's when I discovered the first piece of evidence. Someone had contacted the office asking questions about my mental capacity. But my doctor had never authorized it. I asked the receptionist if anything had been submitted. She said there was a strange inquiry. Then she said something that made my hands go numb. There was also a document attached. I asked for a copy. When I saw it, my entire body went cold. It looked official. My name. My date of birth. Medical terminology. A doctor's name. And a signature. The document claimed I was unable to responsibly manage substantial financial assets. But there was one problem. The doctor had never examined me. The doctor hadn't written the letter. The signature was fake. Someone had created a medical document to make me look incompetent. And suddenly, this wasn't about my sister's business anymore. It wasn't about a family disagreement. It was a plan. A plan to take control of my finances by making me look incapable of controlling them myself. And now I knew exactly what I had to do. I didn't call my mother. I didn't call Sophie. I didn't threaten anyone. I started collecting evidence. I saved every message. Every bank statement. Every account alert. Every document. And then I found something else. A voicemail. My mother had accidentally left it on my phone weeks earlier. I had almost deleted it. In the recording, I could hear my sister asking, "What if Nora finds out?" And my mother said, "She'll be upset." My sister asked, "Then what?" My mother's answer was calm. "She always gets over it." I listened to that sentence 3 times. She always gets over it. That was when I realized something painful. They weren't afraid of hurting me. They were counting on me forgiving them. I handed everything to the investigators. The documents. The voicemail. The financial records. The messages. The doctor's confirmation that the certificate wasn't genuine. And then I waited. For the first time in my life, I didn't fix anything. I didn't call my mother. I didn't rescue my sister. I didn't explain myself. I let the evidence speak. Eventually, my mother had to answer questions. So did my sister. And suddenly, the family story changed. My mother said she had only wanted to help Sophie. My sister claimed she didn't know everything. My father said he thought my mother had permission. Everyone had an explanation. But nobody could explain the forged medical document. That piece of paper changed everything. Because you can argue about money. You can argue about family. You can argue about intentions. But a forged medical document is different. It leaves a trail. I never gave Sophie the $60,000. I never restored my mother's access. And I stopped co-signing loans. But the biggest change wasn't financial. It was inside me. For years, I thought being the good daughter meant being available. If someone needed me, I showed up. If someone made a mistake, I fixed it. If someone crossed a boundary, I forgave them. And I finally realized something. They weren't used to my kindness. They were used to my lack of boundaries. There's a difference. Today, I still have the money. But that's not what makes me feel rich. It's knowing that the next time someone tells me, family helps family, I can answer without guilt. Yes. But family doesn't own family. My grandmother told me to keep something for myself. Now I understand. She wasn't just talking about money. She was talking about the part of me that nobody gets to control. My choices. My voice. My future. And my right to say no. So if you're watching this and you're always the responsible one, the one everyone calls, the one everyone expects to fix things, please remember this. Being dependable doesn't mean being available for exploitation. And if someone becomes angry the moment you establish a boundary, ask yourself one question. Are they angry because you hurt them? Or because they can no longer benefit from you? Because sometimes, the moment you stop being someone's safety net, is the moment you finally discover whether they loved you, or simply loved what you could do for them. If you're the person everyone in your family depends on, but nobody seems to protect, I hope my story reminded you of something important. You are allowed to have boundaries, you are allowed to say no. And you are allowed to protect what you worked so hard to build. But now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a family member feel entitled to your money, your time, or your forgiveness? Did you ever say no to someone you loved and suddenly realize they only valued you when you were helping them? Tell me your story in the comments. You never know who might be reading your words and realizing they're not alone. And if this story made you feel something, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, Because here we tell the stories people are sometimes too afraid to tell out loud. There are more family secrets, betrayals, unexpected twists, and moments when ordinary people finally decide they've had enough, so stay with me. Because sometimes the quietest person in the family has the biggest story to tell. I'll see you in the next story.